Both Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell each lasted just 3 years in the role, and Jon Pertwee followed closely by. Well, ish, with 4 years. And what a 4 years he had. The Third Doctor is commonly remembered by fans as one with very few bad or boring stories, a sentiment that I share. While many were long, with 6 or 7 parts, many of those in particular are regarded as some of the best, like Inferno for example. His era is one that is most fondly remembered for the creation of the Master, the true nemesis and rival to the Doctor, one that was as much a constant throughout the era as Unit. The first incarnation of the Master, played by Roger Delgado, is regarded by many as the greatest, and for good reason, but unfortunately Roger Delgado died in 1973. Another constant throughout the era was producer Barry Letts, who decided it was time to leave in 1974. With the death of a close friend and the departure of another, Pertwee felt that it was just the right time. He'd had his fun, made his money, and would continue to do so, now being a British icon that would last even 50 years after his departure. So, what was his last story like? His final adventure? His last hurrah, so to speak? Planet of the Spiders. Let's begin. This intro is one of my favourites, setting the precedent for all future title sequences, the time vortex being an actual tunnel, a change in style, and the optional full face, something that had been seen in the Troughton sequence, but only partially. We begin with Mike Yates, a character quite important to the later seasons of Pertwee's tenure. Yates was a lieutenant in Unit who ended up betraying them a few stories prior in the invasion of the dinosaurs. Because of his service, instead of being imprisoned, he was quietly allowed to retire, giving him time to recover and recuperate. One of his choice locations is a Buddhist monastery, one with a cult in the basement that he overhears. At the same time, the Doctor and the Brigadier are attending a talent show like Gig, with a comedian, clairvoyant, and one particular act the Brigadier enjoys.
The management takes great pleasure in presenting to you that exotic Turkish delight of the East, Sherizade!
You enjoyed that.
Why are they here? Well, the Doctor has recently taken an interest in psychic energy, and it turns out that the clairvoyant is only pretending. Not pretending as in faking it, but pretending to be faking it. Of course the Doctor notices this, so they take him to Unit HQ for help, testing his abilities, which are quite extraordinary.
I can't keep it up.
You ought to use that in your act.
And lose my sanity would be a poor exchange.
Sergeant Benton, another of the Unit family, enters the room with a package. Of course, to test out the Professor's powers, the Doctor asks him what's inside, perfectly describing the Metebelis III Crystal.
A gemstone. A blue jewel.
Lord, not that stone of yours.
The crystal from Metebelis III.
Being concerned with what he saw, Mike enlists the help of the Doctor's companion, Sarah Jane Smith, since her occupation is journalism. Perhaps there's a story in it. On the way there, the cult in the basement restart their chanting, causing a tractor to appear in front of the car. Despite it being a bit suspicious, they brush it off. When they get there, they are greeted by Choje, a man who is definitely not Tibetan. He heads off for meditation, and 2 cultists approach the duo. Thinking fast, Mike makes up excuses and they leave. But only in the car, choosing to walk back on foot. On entry, they meet the sort of caretaker of the building, a man who very obviously has special needs, but is treated absolutely horribly. Using her more compassionate side, she finds a way past him, and they press onto the basement. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to leave, as the cultists return, beginning their chant again and summoning a spider. The spider has some sort of connection to the crystal, as during the chant it glows and causes great pain to the professor, and also his death. How the hell is Unit going to explain this one? The appearance of the spider for some reason makes the cultists extremely scared, and I can't really figure out why. I mean, what did you think would happen? They knew that they were doing something. The leader of the group, Lupton, attempts to command it, but he fails, and is granted the power that he seeks, by the spider lashing onto his back. As you can probably tell by now, the spiders of Metebelis III are the main villains of this story. They want the Doctor's crystal as it will grant them unlimited power they were robbed of when the Doctor stole it from them at the beginning of the season. Even without the crystal, the spiders have fantastic powers, which now they've granted to Lupton so he can find the Doctor and take the crystal, doing so by literally teleporting it into his hands. He runs away and nicks the Who-mobile, an actual road-legal vehicle since it's classed as a trike. But anyway, somehow this chase ends up with the Brigand, Benton and Bessie, and the Third Doctor in a helicopter going after Lupton. I think this is a tad bit too ridiculous. I know the Third Doctor is meant to be the action hero, but come on. Being complete idiots, they let Lupton escape in the chopper, but luckily the Doctor has one trick up his sleeve.
Of course we're flying.
Yeah, to be fair, this is actually a really well shot sequence, even if the effects are a tad bit dated. They are 50 years old after all. Lupton must be the absolute master in escape, or maybe the spider is, because he manages to get away again. Honestly, it is not Unit's day. But of course there's another craft for the Doctor to give chase in. Honestly, if you thought the War Games game of capture-recapture was tedious, this is more like a shortened version of it, just cat and mouse instead. The Doctor even runs over a bloke. Unfortunately, again for the Doctor, Lupton has one trick up his sleeve. He can just straight up teleport himself. Now the spiders have the crystal and we're only halfway through. The Doctor, Sarah Jane and Yates get to the monastery to take back the crystal. But Lupton doesn't have it anymore, since Tommy took it when he was distracted. Panicking, Lupton restarts the ritual, not knowing Sarah Jane is with him, and transports himself to Metebelis III. But not just that, Sarah is taken too. The Doctor, now having access to his TARDIS again, thanks to the defeating of Omega in a previous story, travels to the planet to rescue Sarah, who has embroiled herself in local politics. Mainly thanks to this guy, who I think looks a tad bit like Billy Garrett John. I mean, the resemblance is uncanny. On Metebelis III, the spiders, known as Eight Legs, dominate, with the Queen being their leader. The humans, or Two Legs as they're known, are the lower class, with some serving the Eight Legs directly. The Doctor confronts the Queen, taking down many of her guards, which causes a distraction. He's finally taken down when one of them uses their spider lightning, as it appears the higher class Two Legs have been granted powers. However, Sarah is thankfully able to escape, blend in, which would have worked if not for Lupton. Back at the monastery, Tommy is given a great intelligence by the crystal, and honestly, this scene is beautiful.
Then we write our news. We read in the book corner. We measure and we weigh. We buy things at the shop. And we have our milk. We play in the playground. We dance.
I can't imagine what it would be like to live your life being unable to read, and within a second, you are granted everything you ever wanted. John Cain was primarily a theatre actor before this story, and it really helps him. He's by far the star of this story, not to put any of the other actors down. The Doctor wakes up, but so does Sarah. They're in very different situations. The conversation is very well done, interweaving with each other and explaining how the Eight Legs became dominant.
How did the spiders get here?
The Eight Legs? Why, they came from Earth too.
But there aren't any spiders as big as these on
Keep
Earth.
your voice down, my child. That word's forbidden here. But you're quite right. Over the years, these spiders became cleverer and cleverer and larger. By the time man found out, it were too late.
And they've ruled us ever since. A few they take and twist their minds until they become their slaves.
The Doctor wastes no time and sets off with a plan. Well, not before breakfast. To be fair to him, it doesn't take long to get to Sarah. Oh indeed, Sarah, oh indeed. They're not the only ones in a tight spot, though. As it turns out, Lupton's spider is trying to start a coup against the Queen, but being the silver-tongued devil he is, he manages to worm his way out of it. Sarah is released and brought to the Queen, who takes a great interest in her, and takes over her body. The Doctor, on the other hand, has to use tricks he learned from Harry Houdini, but it doesn't really get him that far. In the cellar of the monastery, the spiders invade. Cho-Jae is too late to stop them, so Tommy goes to get the monastery's leader, Kanpo. The spiders have taken over the cultists, creating an army that won't be stopped long by a simple cellar door. Kanpo immediately creates an air of calm. That's because he's the Doctor's former mentor, a Time Lord, one that possesses great power. The Queen and the Spider reveals herself to be controlling Sarah and attacks the Doctor, but with some convincing, she stares deep into the crystal.
Sarah, look at the crystal. Look at it. Look deep into its blue light.
No, I will not.
See that you are free now.
Forcing the Queen to retreat. But he's not the only Time Lord. Well, kind of, as Cho-Jae isn't actually real. He's a projection of Kanpo's former self. Kanpo's power is ginormous, even for a Time Lord. He's able to freely move through time and space, project his past incarnation, and even beat the spiders, though a bit of lightning easily puts him down, causing him to regenerate into his former self, a bit like retro-regeneration. With the last of his power, Kanpo sends the Doctor to Metebelis III so he can return the crystal to the Great One, the true leader of the spiders. The Doctor approaches the Great One, crystal in hand, and they are ginormous, not just in size, but in power and intellect. The crystal will complete their plan, pushing their power to infinity, which it does. Only issue is, no single being can wield infinite power, quickly causing their demise. After 3 weeks, the Doctor returns to Unit HQ, dying from the effects of the crystal cave, but not all is over.
Look, Brigadier, look! I think it's starting.
Well, here we go again.
Planet of the Spiders is quite a good story, but it doesn't fully capture my attention. Every time I watch it, I always end up getting distracted, and I don't really know why. It's not that it's a boring story, because it's not. I just think it's a problem that most Pertwee six-parters suffer from. As I said at the beginning, his whole era is one that is looked upon very fondly by all, whether it's due to the action, the Doctor's charisma, or his iconic companions like Katie Manning's Jo Grant or Liz Sladen and Sarah Jane Smith. Who knows? But it cannot be stressed enough that, to me, Jon Pertwee is the best Doctor. Not my favourite, but the best. The most consistent in terms of writing and character, with barely a flaw to him. That last line will probably create uproar in some corner of the internet, but anyway. Join me next time, where we shall start with a new Doctor, the one that most people consider to be the best Doctor. I'll see you then.